So here we are again, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Surprise Stare game stream at Spiel.digital 2020. We all wish we were in the halls, breathing in the funk from all the other people, but unfortunately, we're stuck in our homes. Yeah. That's why I drink vodka. And we have Alan Paull, Tony Boydell, denizens of SurprisedStareGames. So yesterday we had a talk about, your experiences of Essen, your experiences of Nuremberg. We spoke with your translator, the challenges of bringing a game to market and the challenges of translating a game to market. And sort of in terms of the chronology, we got to what Alan off camera yesterday referred to as SurprisedStareGames' first proper board game.
Yeah.
And that was Tara, Seat of Kings. Can you tell me something about Tara, Seat of Kings?
Tony's got a copy, I know.
Hey, you carry on, Alan. It's your game. You talk about it a minute.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Tara, Seat of Kings was born of a simple pack of, for some reason, blue cards. And I had this idea that you could make a pyramid and you could have a game which was built on the basic idea that if you can match two things at the bottom of the pyramid, you could put another card above it and form the next part of the pyramid, and you could kind of cascade upwards. And when you reach the top, you are the king of the castle. And it was originally called King of the Castle. That's not a great name, but you start somewhere. And we literally the very start of that design was putting the cards out and seeing if that kind of thing would work, and then having some vague actions that made the whole thing function. And that was the start of the development process. But we ended up with, oh look, he's doing an unboxing live.
Ooh, live
Let's
unboxing.
do this. Oh, wrong person. Sorry, got rid of Tony. There we go.
What are you doing, Paul?
There we go.
Just making it so it's big. Yeah, there we go. And we so after a couple of years of development, we had ourselves a proper game, and it was themed with, oh look, yes, look, pictures of us in there.
That's medieval red.
Medieval Irish red. Yeah. After a couple of years of development, we themed it. We gave it an Irish theme, hence Tara, Seat of Kings, being the place where the High Kings of Tara sat.
And why the Celtic theme? Why the Irish theme? Do you have any particular connection to Ireland, or were you just reading a book on Celtic mythology at the time or something?
I have no connections with Ireland whatsoever, regrettably. No, it was.
I don't recall, to be honest.
I don't know quite why we did it. It was a moment of inspiration. Part of it was because we could get these 3 provinces. And I think it had 3 provinces, medieval provinces, which we could use. So I think we were probably looking around for a country with a relatively small number of provinces, so we could actually have them all represented. Something as simple and crude as that, really. And so we developed this game, and it was one of the times when we decided that for Essen we were not going to actually have a full stand, and we just had I think that's right. We had a gaming prototype table when it was. He's muted. You're muted, Tony.
Yeah, I keep getting interrupted. Sorry. Yeah, we had a demo table, didn't we? Author's table, I think they called it.
Yeah.
5.
Yeah.
Alice, my eldest, came to Essen with us. I think it was the first time a child of mine came along prior to secondary school, and we had a little thing in the corner of Hall 5, along with all the other people with their weird football-based games.
So I basically manned the prototype table and played Tara, Seat of Kings for the whole of Essen.
And what's the bigger challenge? So you've just done card games up until this point. You've done Copper Twaddle, you've done Bloody Legacy. What's the extra challenge of producing a full game with a board and cards and tokens and all of that sort of stuff? Obviously, there's more financial outlay, but are there other problems with regards to that?
Not really other problems. No, I mean I was used to producing print materials of various types, so that in terms of production, it wasn't a huge problem. I mean, but the thing is, there's more artwork, there's more there's more components. There's more, I suppose, there's more risk of things going wrong because there's more moving parts, if you like.
It takes up more space as well, more physical space.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, the delivery. Yeah, because we could have when we had Bloody Legacy delivered, I think we had all the Bloody Legacies just delivered to the stand, didn't we, or something? We brought them all over in a car. I can't remember now.
Yes,
you can't do that. You can't do that with the.
What we did, I had a massive Toyota people mover,
yes,
and I filled it literally to the rim. So I had no space apart from my bit of the driver's seat that wasn't stacked copies of Tara Seed of Kings.
We
only did
750 copies. So it was, oh yeah, that was the major difference in terms of, because of the financial outlay for this. We were kind of judging how many is it economic to produce 500 or 750 or whatever? Because where's a decent price point setting that we could still make a bit of money out of it, but 750 was just about on the nub of being economical as long as we sold them all, and we couldn't really afford to. We couldn't afford to do double that number because we didn't have the dosh. That was
didn't have the space either, to be honest with you.
No, that's true. Oh yeah. So at this point, we hadn't actually worked out any way of storing anything. So
the shed wasn't a thing at this point.
No,
we didn't have a shed. No, God.
I was a man without a shed. I needed one.
Yeah. What was the view by this time? What was the people's view of Surprise Stare Games? Because you'd been to Essen that first time and you'd massively overpriced Copper Twaddle. Were you starting to get a reputation by this point or not?
Well, I don't think so. I'm not sure
I think that already by then we did have some established people who'd seen our stuff. I think the Bloody Legacy was the key there. That Bloody Legacy, a lot of people got Bloody Legacy and realized we were doing some quite good stuff. We're interested. So although we didn't have huge numbers of didn't have a huge following.
It's interesting because you see it differently. I see it as that we had a couple of people that we recognized from the previous years, but I don't think anybody was putting us down on their list of places to go first. The year of Tara, I believe we were opposite CGE or whatever CGE was before it split and became.
But I'm just thinking
two Czech companies, and I
was thinking of the prototype year. Because remember the important thing about the prototype year was that we had that the fair play.
You're misremembering. That was the year it actually came out. Because I remember.
I thought that was the prototype year.
No,
no.
They wouldn't have waited a year it was actually the year that Tara came out. That's why I think that was the year that people started noticing Surprise Stare, because I think On the Underground was also released that year by our mutual friends, and that was in the top 10 as well. So Tara, Seed of Kings, was number 4 in the Fair Play magazine. The Scout thing, the Scout Action thing.
Yeah.
And On the Underground was number 9, I think. And I think that's when people thought, because we had people coming explicitly to see the game because it was on the list of the Spiel action stuff, so the Scout action. So I think once Tara had got out there, and it wasn't just a little card game anymore, because I think there's a big difference between people visiting a stand that's unknown to them. If they see it's just a card game, they often just pass by.
They did come out in the same. That was 2006. It came on the Underground. Tara Seed of Kings came out in 2006. Oh, the other interesting thing about Tara was it was the first time we had any kind of conflict with other publishers, because and that was in the prototype year. Somebody else, we had the prototype table and we had I don't think it was finished artwork, was it, at that point? I think it was close.
Still drawing it.
And there was an Irish company that were producing a game also called Tara. And I had a bit of a barney with the guy.
He started it. He sent you an awful email.
He insisted, or he was trying to insist, that we couldn't call our game that because it was conflicting with his game, which was called something like Tara, High King of Ireland, or something. I can't remember the exact name.
It was actually a puzzle. It was a puzzle more than a puzzle game. It was
a totally different thing. And I at that point, after I'd had that, and he'd sent me this snotty email, I actually went to the trouble of registering the only time we've done it is registering the name of the game, so that we were on and that was fine. And he hadn't registered his, so
right, of course,
because he was sensible and not spending the money. It wasn't a lot of money to register it, but I wouldn't normally do that. But I didn't want to get into any form of dispute with somebody about something as silly as whether I have got Seat of King in the name of the game or not. It was ridiculous.
He was about six or seven stalls down from us on our left, back almost adjacent to where Japan Brand used to be in Hall 4. And I remember him giving us snotty looks every time he went by. And in fact, at one point he said, the only reason you're in the top 10 list is because they're getting our game confused with your game. Twat.
Oh, dear.
Twats.
And so is having a proper game with, a proper board and all of that, do you then start to feel more like a board game company?
Yes.
Does it?
Yes,
I've got this big box thing, and we've produced this. Do you then feel more like, wow, it's actually a thing now?
Yeah, we're not a fly by night, one shot wonder. We're a proper board game company. That's what it is. Yeah. We're still not, mind you, we're still not paying ourselves at this point. We're still having to invest in the company massively each time, because that's the nature of the beast, really.
And to be fair, go on, Ben.
No, carry on.
I was going to say, and we followed it up with.
Well, I was just
riding the crest of this Tara wave. We decided to follow it up with
another hit game.
It's a wonderful segue that you were going to give to me there. So there is a board game meme, and it's something of a joke, and it is that there is this very rare, very exciting British game that people should try and get hold of to use as a paperweight or something to hold the door open, and that is Scandaroon. So, firstly, explain why is Scandaroon a huge joke? Is it as bad as you make out and other people on the internet make out?
The thing about Scandaroon is it started life as another single box card game with no other components. And the idea was that you'd simply use your score pile, which is an element of Scandaroon. Whoever had the most points in their score pile would be the winner. And it would work really nicely as a single box card game, a little bit copper twaddly. And that's the way it was going to be. But it kind of I think it got a bit overdeveloped. And the problem was my absolute urgent need to see a game every year from SurprisedStare, and I think it's me that is the problem with Scandaroon for all the reasons. I wanted it out there, and I wanted it released, and we shortcut the entire process. It wasn't properly play tested, I think. I mean, all the extra stuff that was added onto it was good and interesting, but there were things I would look back on it now and go, we really should have addressed the overwhelming idea that you're all drawing from a single pack, and with 4 players, that's a massive amount of luck. 2 players, you can kind of get away with it with copper twaddle, but with Scandaroon, it felt overarchingly a complete disadvantage. The fact that I played everybody at Essen that year, and I won every single game and I played, and I actually won 2 of the games with the best score you can get in Scandaroon, which is 21 points, doesn't help explain to people that this weird, pallid, blue, non-thematic, non-anything really card game was worth them spending even any time with. So even if they did sit down, they would look at it and think, well, this is quite complicated, and I'm not even getting any pleasure from looking at it.
Or from losing to Tony at it, because Tony will just win, But no, I think that the thing we didn't really do properly with Scandaroon was consult with other people. Did we take it to Designer Day? Or did we even have Designer Days in 2006? In whenever it was.
We might have done, but I was so keen to get another game out there. And in fact, JKLM, who partnered us with the printing of Scandaroon, picked it up. Actually, I think they did it because they were desperate to get Confucius, because we'd already seen Confucius.
That's what they told me afterwards.
Yeah, but this is the lead. This leads into JKLM. Were a small British company that were aggressively trying the Z-Man model of publishing. So basically, they were trying to get as many games and produce as many as possible every single year and become a design house that would churn out 10, 15 games a year. Unfortunately, the key people behind it, either in ignorance or in utter maliciousness, were financially incompetent. And so very quickly, they overstretched their means, and you'd end up with them robbing Peter to pay Paul in every instance. So every new game that would come out, they would pay for bits of it off the sort of advancedness of that, without ever kind of catching up on what they were owing to everybody else. And there are many stories around it, but our experience of them was that they came in at Scandaroon, convinced us that 2,000 copies would be good. And to be fair, I wish we hadn't printed 200 of the bloody things now. And then they would ride with us on the journey through Confucius as well.
So let's talk about your process at this time. How are you playtesting games? How are you getting them out there? Are you two working together? Are you sending each other prototypes of your stuff and working with them, or are you working independently? Is it Sergeant Pepper's, or is it the White Album? I guess is my question.
It's Sergeant Pepper's because we live really close to each other at this point.
We're working together.
Where were you living at this time?
In Cheltenham.
In Cheltenham.
And you moved up to Stroud area, but we were really close, so it was no problem for us to get together and play test. And
we moved to when did I can't remember. We moved to Stroud in 2000, something like that. Is that right? I always get the timescales a bit muddled. We were all in Gloucestershire. We were close enough to work together on it. So yes, it was definitely. I think we need to share the blame and share some of the credit of things that were going on. And so, I mean, Scandaroon. I wasn't unconvinced. I wasn't the one saying no, we shouldn't produce Scandaroon. I wasn't as keen as Tony to push it for that year. But then I didn't say no, we mustn't do this. It's shite. I didn't think it was. I still think it's got some merit. You see, you should redevelop Scandaroon, Tony.
So why?
Well, I did. It became Deals for London, effectively.
That's true. It did. Yeah.
It's all the ideas.
That's a bit of a leap.
Where's the impulse to do a game a year? Is it because you want to feel relevant? You want to go with something new to Essen?
Yes.
Does it feel like if you go to Essen without a new game that you're kind of charlatans? Or
well, the whole of Spiel is geared to new releases all the time, every time. If we got over 1,000, well, now I think they're quoting over 1,500 new releases Spiel every year. I mean, back then we were still talking 900, 800 new releases every year, and the focus is on that new thing all the time. I mean, you can buy, games which are older games, and you can buy, by the time you've gone 3 years from the release of a game, it's now available cheap as a remaindered game. Even the Spiel.digital ones are. So I mean, having something new is what the punters are looking for at Spiel. It's what people want. So I think we went a couple of years with just a Snowdonia expansion, didn't we? I think, Tony.
Yeah, 2013.
Yeah. And that's slightly, I mean, we can sell quite a lot of Snowdonia expansions. That's not really a problem. But it does feel like you're a bit...
Yeah, you're not moving the company forward because you're just paying for the privilege of being in Essen, and you're not getting anything else out of it.
And we wanted to grow our market, so we wanted to make sure that we were getting repeat customers every year, and that was absolutely key. So I think we were right to go every year. It's just a question of whether Scandaroon was the.
We rushed it, but then again, we learned our lesson on that. I mean, the artwork of Scandaroon is appalling. I really making Charlie have to work with that rubbish.
So did you do the art for the game?
I did the box art, which is a really scrabbly rubbish sort of Turkish cityscape. It's just appalling. It's so lazy. I was so desperate to keep the momentum up of something coming out. And Charlie did the best she could, but she was working with absolute dog shit. I mean, it was just not good at all. A game like that would work really well if the artwork was really pumped up. And if we were doing it now, we'd have pumped it up with beautiful illustrations of rich Turkish markets and resources, and things would have been really lavish and lovely. It looked awful. My youngest daughter, Daisy, came with us that year to Essen, and she spent most of her time, because she wasn't really into board games, just buying giant Haribo and going on the Galleria's bungee jumps and trampolines and stuff. And to be honest with you, I would rather have spent my Essen doing that. That year was incredibly. In fact, I think, Alan, that was the year the trains had a train strike.
Everything went wrong
at the weekend, so nobody could get in, and the cash points failed as well, so nobody could get any money out for international payments.
For international payments, so people couldn't get pounds or dollars, which was just a total disaster, really.
And it meant I was actually all for going home. That Friday afternoon, I was like, Daisy, I think we just need to go home. I'm feeling so desperately unhappy.
And so, why were you so desperately unhappy? Was just no one buying the game?
Nobody bought it. I think we sold 70 copies over 4 days. Like I think I demoed it maybe an average of once every 2 hours. So my boast about winning every game I played has been I won about 6 games in the entire show.
I think the problem with this, the problem is that because of the nature of our offering, we Thursday's the most important day for us. So we can see what's going to happen. So when you get to Scandaroon and we have the Thursday and we think, oh, well, I think we sold 30 on the Rings of Vague, but I think we sold 30 copies of Scandaroon on the first day. And you know that Friday is going to be half that, Saturday might be half that, and Sunday's going to be nothing. So you're looking at it and you're thinking, oh, we've done a whole day and it's been absolutely terrible. And you've got 3 more days.
When did you realize that Scandaroon wasn't great, though? Was there an element of lying to yourself that this is our new game, it's going to be cool? Or did you kind of know all along that there was an issue with it?
I think it was hope over expectation. I think we were hoping that it was going to be fine.
When I saw it, I didn't see it until the day before Spiel.
Oh, that's true.
We got there on the Wednesday, and I saw it on the Wednesday night. Marcus brought it in. And I was like, oh, this is great. This is my game. But inside I'm thinking, oh, this is horrible. It's horrible.
And so you printed 2,000 copies of Scandaroon, right? How many are still extant from that original printing?
I've got about 8 here. There are copies floating around. I probably imagine there's about 400 or 500 out there.
But what we did with some of them was we gave some to UK. We gave some to UK Games Expo, didn't we?
I did.
I don't know quite. I just can't believe that even remotely worked. I mean, we didn't charge them anything for it.
No, they weren't going to turn away free stuff, were they?
Have a free game. It's great. You know,
we're giving it away for free because we have so much faith in it.
We've exactly. Oh, it's a bit So lots of people have got copies of Scandaroon, and the lucky people haven't got one. You know.
So it's the old raffle joke. I have a raffle at the Gathering of Chums, and the joke is that first prize is a copy of Scandaroon, second prize is 2 copies of Scandaroon. You know, it's that kind of. It's the gift that keeps on giving, really.
And so, how much did you lose from Scandaroon?
I think we lost everything that we'd made up at that point. So I think we were broken even again. We tended to break even when we had a terrible, terrible time. But at that point, I just started working in London. So I was getting a much increased pay rate to what I was getting when I was working in the early 2000s.
And I was actually doing, I was doing all right as well because
so we could absorb it. Actually, we could only afford Tara because I got that job in London.
It was before the financial crash of 2008. So
Scandaroon's fault. That's what started it. Thin end of the wedge.
It wasn't Lehman Brothers. It was Scandaroon at Essen 2007. So you go on then and you publish what Tony called yesterday, if anyone was watching, one of the great midweight Euro games. Something that I'm very excited to play now, having not really known about it before. And this is Confucius. So tell us about Confucius. What was the conception? What was the idea?
When I started designing Confucius, the original idea was to do a 66 card card game. In fact, I wanted to do a 66 card game for another company.
Adlungsspieler. Adlungsspieler was a big fan of our stuff, wasn't he, Alan? And we wanted to do something for them.
We quite like them. Wanted to do something for them. So I thought, let's do this. And I had this. I'd read an article because I read vague, odd historical articles. I read this article. I don't even know. I've got a copy of it somewhere probably, which said, and during the Ming Dynasty, what used to happen was that high up political people would actually exchange gifts with their proteges. And that means it ties you to your protege. And this did happen in Europe as well. I mean, I think it's quite a common way. It's patronage basically. And so if you receive this gift, you can't possibly turn it down. You can't turn down a gift, even if it's from one of your enemies. That's just not the done thing at all.
Right.
But once you've got this gift, you are if you're the inferior side of the gift, the person who's received it, you are on a bound to help your patron in some way. And this suggested to me that a mechanic for a game. So the idea of Confucius is you're all these high-ranking potential officials of the court, and it's Confucian. So there are certain things you have to do and certain things you can't. And you're all trying to influence the government. And because it's under the Ming, you have the opportunity to fund these overseas voyages and go and explore the rest of the world. You're trying to reconquer the lands that the Mongols took from China earlier. So you've got foreign lands to conquer, and you've got overseas voyages to do. But most importantly, you're trying to control the ministries of the government in order so that your family becomes the most powerful family in China. And so everybody starts the game with several gifts, one of which they can actually use at the start, and the gifts get progressively more expensive. 6 gifts, thank you. And as one of the, it's basically a kind of worker placement. It's an action selection technique. You have a limited number of actions that you can take, one of which is you can give a gift to one of the other players. And if you give them a gift, they can't refuse, obviously, that would be wrong. And once you've done that, then they have to help you in some way in order to fulfill the other side of it, having received a gift. And that means, for example, if we're adjudicating who controls the ministry, if you've got a gift from me, you have to support my domination. Even if you're actually politically opposed to me, you still have to support me.
Even if you're tied. Even if you're tied with me.
Even if you're tied, you still have to support. If there's a little sub mechanic where we have the imperial examinations, where two players have got candidates for becoming an official, and you
so
take
is this the tiebreaker rule that Big Bad Lex is referring to?
No, that's something we'll come back to that in a minute.
Okay,
we'll come back to that one. Yeah. So if you've got a candidate for the exam and I've got a candidate for the exam, what happens in the game is that people can opt to support one or other of the candidates. If you've got a gift from me, you have to support my candidate, even if you've got a candidate for that same exam. And when you've given support in whichever way is appropriate, the gift is effectively cancelled. Now, the interesting thing about it is the gifts are all graded 1 to 6. So if I've given you the lowest grade, you can give me a higher ranked gift, which cancels my gift to you and effectively reverses the obligation. So you've got that kind of balance of terror of gifts. I've got my gift. If I've got my level 4 gift in play and you haven't, you really want to get at least a level 4 gift in play in case I give you my level 4 gift. You see, so I mean, the reason I liked it personally quite a lot was that I like the idea, that concept of the balance of terror of gifts, because I've got this high-ranking gift in front of me, which you know I got, and you've got to do something about it.
I recall somebody playing a game of this, and the guy understood exactly how the gift giving worked, and he spent the first third of the game quietly buying and seeding the gifts amongst all the other players. At the end of the game, he won all 3 ministries. He let everyone else fight over the voyages and fight over the armies. He simply got, because the ministries are where the richest victory points are gained. You can get anywhere between sort of 7 and 9 points per ministry. And 27 points is a winning score by a large margin. And it's such a joy when we were demoing this at Spiel to see people suddenly realize what the hell that gift that had just been given to them meant. And the horror that would fall on their faces is It was utterly delightful. And the good thing about demoing Confucius is the first time we changed our demo style. We decided that we wouldn't play the games that we were demoing. We would tell people about the mechanisms of the game and then let them get on with it. And Confucius being a particular level of game, you didn't need to talk down to the players. They knew what you were talking about. They knew what worker placement and the ministries is effectively area control. The gift giving was a little bit of manipulation, action sort of hoarding and reservation stuff, obligation stuff. So they all knew the basic concept. So you could literally leave people playing after a 20-minute rules explanation without having gone through the 24-page rule book in detail. So there was Confucius did a great many things for us when it came out. In a sense, it was the first proper game that we produced.
It was a proper Euro game. I mean,
proper game.
My approach to that was actually a kind of reaction against the kind of point salad-y type Euro. So I wanted a game where you didn't amass hundreds of points. It was every point really, really matters in Confucius, and that's what I really wanted. And also, I didn't want there to be so much conflict about where you went, because I think you can go wherever you like in Confucius in terms of the action areas. If you want to do the same action again, it costs you an extra man. But if you want,
it's the Keyflower. Keyflower copied the Confucius action.
Yeah. Well, ish. And the other thing which I bunged in, and I was fairly certain it was a good idea. I wasn't absolutely sure whether it would work and quite how. Was a pass action. You can specifically play one of your guys and pass and do nothing, and the people who are really good at Confucius, and not me, have recognized that as a particularly powerful thing that sometimes you can do, because the thing is, when it's your game, you have to take an action. You can't skip. So if you're in a situation where you got more actions than somebody else, you just pass, and then you've reversed the initiative on somebody else.
Actually, you really mentioned
can do that.
The number of actions you had per round depended on how many gifts you had given and received.
Yes.
So if you sat there, I remember a playtest where one of the players was like, I'm not interested in gifts. I'm not going to get involved in this nonsense. So in the first round, 4 out of the 5 players either gave or received gifts amongst each other. And the 5th player just said, don't give me a gift. I'm not giving you a gift. Sod the lot of you. By round 2, he realized he was completely out of the game. Because he had 3 actions and we all had 4 actions.
And
when you've got basically when you've got 4 extra actions taking things away from your possibilities every single time an action is being placed, you're screwed. And he realized then actually you need to do it. And that makes the gift giving even more of an interesting thing, because sometimes you have to understand that you're going to lose. Someone's going to outbid you on a gift. You're going to lose that obligation, but it does at least mean you preserve your action. And if you overextend and you've got all these actions, you've got to make sure you use them.
Yes.
You know, you end up passing and not making use of the pass. You've just wasted all of this money and actions. It's such a clever game. Such a clever game. However,
it's quite unforgiving. It's quite unforgiving. Yeah. You know, I didn't want to. I didn't want to make it that you could play badly and still wriggle out of it.
Right. and so what is this legendary at this point tiebreaker rule that I've just learnt about from Lex?
Okay.
What is it and how did you come up with it?
Genius.
Well, one of there's not very many. You don't score very many points in Confucius. You can win with like 17 or 18 points. So it is possible to tie. It's not. I mean, I wouldn't say it's rare. It's not rare. It's not common, but it's not completely rare. So I had to have a tiebreaker rule, because you can't really have a game like this, which is so competitive, and then you end up with a tie. So I figured that it might be interesting to make it so that if there's a tie, the person who is the admiral wins. But the person who's the admiral wins even if they're not in the tie. Yeah. So
the thing was,
if you
the most boats,
if you are
the most boats, most fleets,
you have
you became the admiral.
You become the admiral if you've done the most voyages. I think it is. I can, you know what? I can't even remember. It's my game.
Yeah, the idea was that the admiral.
I gotta look it up.
In historic terms, the admiral was the most powerful person anyway, because he had control of all the fleets.
So
you couldn't move your armies around without them.
It's if you are you control that particular ministry. That's what it is. That's how you become.
Yeah. So in a vacuum of power, the admiral just steps in and takes over.
Yeah,
regardless.
Exactly.
That's the idea.
That's the idea. Yes. Now I'm unfortunately, badly, I made that an optional rule rather than part of the main game. So that was a bit of a cop out in a way. I agonised quite a lot about whether it should be optional, whether it should be part of the main flow of the game, but and really it should be. You should always play it. You should definitely always play it because it's such an interesting thing. If you think you can't win, if you get the admiral and try and make it a draw, that's the kind of ultimate achievement, if you like.
And so
the admiral is the player with the most junks on voyages. That's right. Yeah.
So one of the few games I've had a visceral reaction to the point where I had to write a message to my friends afterwards and apologize for acting like a child was Goo-Gone. I absolutely detested that game from the first turn, and not my turn, the first turn of the game. I just thought this game is appalling. It de-incentivizes fun, and it's truly the archetype of the soulless, themeless, boring Euro game. But what did you feel when Goo-Gone came out? Was there a sense of, I already bloody designed this game and everyone's talking about this one? Or did you not care?
I didn't really register Goo-Gone at all, to be honest. Not at all.
No, I mean, it has gifts in it. I don't know. I mean, I don't know exactly how much it would be close. I don't think it's close to Confucius because Confucius is too good a game. And lots of people would have remarked if they'd seen it and said, "Oh, this looks like Confucius." We've had a really good relationship with some reviewers over the years. People like Dale from Opinionated Gamers, who we see a lot and regularly, and they know the history and what we do. So they would have told us. I think the gift giving is part of it, and there's nothing wrong with being inspired, but I don't think I've seen a game that's used that mechanic since then. And certainly, if they had an element of it, they've certainly not made use of it the way that Alan designed it, which is the best way to use it.
So
thank you. It's very kind.
Sorry, Alan, carry on.
I mean, when I designed it, I thought it was probably original, but I think some people have told me since then that there may be another game or two in the midst of time that use the same thing. There's very little that is really genuinely original, but we all climb on the shoulders of giants, so that's what we have to do.
So when Tony sent me the notes over to prepare for doing these streams today, he said Scandaroon, Confucius, and I will quote the notes: Scandaroon, Confucius, how SSG nearly died. And this comes into the question that Wall of Shame 70 has asked, which is, was it hard to sell Confucius to people who bought Scandaroon? Had you queered your reputation with Scandaroon? And did Confucius nearly kill the company?
No, it's nothing to do with querying the patch. The year we launched Confucius, we had a deal with an American company. I think, who was it who bought? They bought a pallet of the games, which is about 300 copies. So we knew out of the 2,000 being produced that we were going to Essen with a pallet pre-sold. It was the year that we got together with a group with JKLM who were organizing a British stand in Hall 5, which is traditionally where Warfrog and Treefrog like to live. So that's where Martin would be. And a few other companies came on board. There was Martin with Treefrog. There was us. He was just starting Treefrog, so he was signing all of his games. Tinner's Trail came out that year and all that kind of stuff. So we were launching it, and we were very positive about it. The only problem was getting it to Spiel in the first place. And I'll sort of leave that with Alan because he had to deal with most of this, and that's the thing that nearly killed us, not the game itself.
I think it was Heidelberger who actually bought copies, wasn't it?
It was, and there was an American company that took a pallet straight away.
Oh yes, that's true. Yeah. Sorry, you cut out then. I wasn't quite sure what you were leading into, Tony.
I was wondering that you could tell the story of the finances and how it was the production that nearly killed us.
Oh yeah, yes. Well, I mean, I had a kind of vision for how Confucius should look, and I wanted a nice. Well, it's partially done. I want a nice black lacquered box, which is we've almost got with that. But what we decided we would do was we would fund it alongside JKLM, so they would partially fund and we would partially fund. We share the costs and share out the copies. Now, the idea was that we would produce the game for UK Games Expo that year, which I think was 2008.
Yeah.
So the idea was we would produce copies for UK Games Expo, and that would be our launch. And actually, that was highly significant because we wanted to launch something at UK Games Expo, and doing Confucius would be great because it would mean the game was out in the marketplace, and we could take loads to Essen as well, and we'd sell a lot of games there. And I think that we weren't in charge of production. It was just JKLM were in charge of the production of Confucius, actual print production and sourcing pieces and things like this. And they were, well, put it this way: I thought that we had made decisions about what the pieces should be, for example, and how things should work, but they were not going with what we'd agreed. And so we had. And I don't think it was misunderstandings. It was actually they had decided what they wanted to do, and they were just going to, well, almost pretty much lie about what was going on. And there's particular problems were with the timescale, because as far as I knew, everything was fine, right up to quite close to Expo. Everything's, from my point of view, seemed to be fine in terms of production. They were telling me it was fine, but I discovered, I think we were with Cartamundi then, weren't we? Was it produced?
Yeah, John. It was John
by Cartamundi, and who we'd done Scandarin with, so we knew they were quite competent. But when it was getting close to delivery, I was getting murmurings from Cartamundi that things were not okay, and I dug deeper, and I discovered that they hadn't been paid. And the basic idea of this was we were paying at least half up front in order to get delivery, and then we're paying the rest on delivery. It was a fairly standard arrangement, and they didn't have any money. They were not being paid.
We handed our money over, though. We handed our money over to JKLM.
We paid JKLM, but they hadn't paid anything to Cartamundi. So we were left in a situation where we'd actually advertised that we were going to launch this game at UK Games Expo, and there was the danger we had no copies. So I just pulled in every possible favour I could with Cartamundi, and I think we got 22. I think we got 22.
Yeah. We actually had to raise the money to get.
We raised the money. That was it. Yeah,
we had to find 10 grand pounds.
We had to find 10 grand in order to get
copies of the game.
A minimum number of copies at that time.
And what were JKLM doing at this time then? They
were avoiding paying artists for Tinner's Spell. They weren't paying royalties to any of their authors.
Their whole business model was weird, to say the least, in the sense that what they would do is they would encourage a designer, usually a new designer, to their stable by saying to the designer, if you pay us X £1,000, which will be part of the cost of your game, we will then publish the game. Now, that's not the way it's supposed to work in any kind of model. The designer doesn't pay the publisher in order to get their game published.
Right.
The other way around. But for some reason, I mean, a lot of people are desperate to get into print. So for some people, they were happy to do that. We hadn't gone down that route. We'd gone into a partnership, which was supposed to be an equal partnership, and so we were acting on that basis. And I'm a project manager. I kind of know how to do these things. I was asking them things, and I was getting what seemed to me to be appropriate answers. And it's only by digging, deeper and going. They were supposed to be doing all the liaison with Cartamundi, but I had to do some of that to find out what was going on. Then I found that the only way we could get any copies at all for UK Games Expo was to raise what to us was a very large sum of money. And after a lot of agony,
we paid our money to one company which it turned out wasn't the company that was actually dealing with Cartamundi for the production of Confucius, because JKLM actually had split themselves into a number of different entities under a holding group. You know, the classic way of messing about with your tax obligations, but also the classic way of hiding money and defrauding people.
Yeah, it was a torturous. As you can see, I can't remember all these details because I blocked all this out as being a bad thing, really. But I think the important thing was we did get, because of our own investment, our own double investment, effectively in this. We got 22. We got 22 copies, which if you had some for Expo, which we obviously sold out completely of, so
we got thousands for that Essen, didn't we? And we were doing our own deal. So at that point, Marcus and JKLM didn't have any copies to sell, and we had our 1,000 copies to sell at the show. So
again, when we went to Essen and we took all these copies with us, they were shipped out by JKLM, because the delivery is all going to JKLM, and we had the copies. So I actually had in writing from JKLM all the copies that are left after Essen will be shipped back to the UK to us, because they hadn't paid for them at all. So I was thinking, right, we have all these copies, and we will do what we like with them. And if JKLM actually pay us, then they can have some copies. This is where the more shenanigans came in, because what I then discovered was that they hadn't given us back all the copies. They shipped a pallet to the States without actually directly breaching our agreement.
And received the money for it that didn't go to you.
Presumably received the money for them as well, yes. Because they had paid, well, they had presumably paid some money to Cartamundi for this. But it meant that we were effectively 250 copies short, got a whole pallet of copies, 215 or whatever it was. And that was the critical thing for me was that was in direct breach of what I'd agreed with JKLM. So, you know, at that point we were really at the end of the road with them, and we eventually had some very, very torturous negotiations. Thing is, when you're a small company like us, you can't afford to go to law on any of this, because all that does is break both companies, really, because of the legal fees. So there was never really any question of doing that, although we did consider it. But
how sweary was Tony at this point?
I think we were both pretty damn sweary.
Yeah, to hear Alan swear is a rare and wonderful thing, frankly, but it's highly unusual. The good thing, there is a positive in the sense that we had the first copies and we sold everything that we had with us.
Everything we had.
That pallet, everything that we could have with us at Essen, we sold. So we broke even on Confucius, just about. Whereas it should, by rights, any other company, I think, would have been absolutely hammered by it. If it hadn't been Alan sort of being persistent, and had we not been flexible enough to stump up a bit of extra cash just to ease the flow of the games out of Belgium, then it would have been a completely lost cause. But the game was so well received in that medium to heavyweight gaming community that it buoyed us up as reputationally, even though certainly for a couple of years, it was an immense weight around Alan's neck. This is such a travesty that a game of quality should have been.
We were looking really at reprint. We wanted to have a successful Essen and reprint Confucius, and then go on from there. And that was the idea.
I think forever looked for the pot at the end of the rainbow, and every time they signed a new game, they thought it was going to be the one that would sell 100,000 copies, and then they would eventually be able to pay everybody back. Right. But it just meant that the new person ended up money who were shouting loudest from the line of creditors behind them. And then while they were being dealt with, they would just roll on to the next thing.
It was a pyramid scheme, essentially.
It was a pyramid scheme, in fact. I mean, to be fair to us, in a way, I mean, we went into this. We would not have been able to fund Confucius on our own. So we had to have a partner, and we were at that point we were strongly preferring a UK-based partner, really, and we had worked with JKLM before, so in a sense they were kind of a bit of a known quantity. They weren't completely unknown, and so I think we recognised that there was risk involved there, but then we had what we thought were reasonable agreements with people, and to an extent, you have to believe people when they say something, and we learned a lot. And I think that it took me out of game design for quite a long time. I just got stressed about it and didn't want to do it. But I think the key takeaway from that is, and what we've always done since, is to have long-term relationships with people that we know and respect and like and can work with. So that's why we are working with Matthias. We're working with Two Tomatoes, and we've done a lot of work with Lookout Games and with Clemens France, and people that and Daniel Danzer, and so we have these long-term relationships, and that's what I think you have to build on, really, because there's.
Well, I think what we did in the first instance, though, Alan, and I think this is really a compliment to us as Surprise Stare, is that we rode out the storm because we were so proud of the game and so confident that there was quality product. We didn't blame ourselves particularly in that area. It wasn't the game's fault that it felt unlike Scanner could have done it the year before, because it just wasn't good. But Confucius was really good. We had to keep focusing on the quality, and we decided that we would go back to basics, go back to something that was simple and relatively inexpensive to produce, and then do all the elements of it ourselves. So go back to solo. So Alan would project manage it, do all the coordination. Charlie would do the artwork, layout, so on, with my help and with my assistance. And we would pick something that was simple, something that we thought would complement the brand, complement our approach to gaming. So a big board game was out of the question. So a card game had to be it.
And so in the notes, it says SSG Reborn. How did you pull yourself out of the mire that was working with JKLM, was the disappointment of Confucius?
Well, that's really over to Tony in a way, isn't it? I mean, it was our next offerings were the ones.
We threw ourselves into it. I mean, we wanted something simple. We'd been working on Fzzzt for a long time. It had been it had been a game called Mad Cows about buying BSE cows at an auction. Right back to our first Essen, we were demoing versions of that. But we worked really hard on playtesting it and refining it, and we had some great sessions at the Surprise Days at Alan and Charlie's place, where we stripped away some of the extraneous fat, some of the bad taste bits of the game. A bad taste as in the mechanics, you could get, there were some take that elements of the game that we removed. And we felt really happy with it. And I threw myself into the artwork and really went down that road of the humor, of the robots, of the little in-jokes, the fact that the rulebook was printed on little green and white striped hold paper like you would get in an old dot matrix printer in the 1980s. We had lots of in-jokes. And we brought the humor back to it through the game, and it helped buoy us up. And because literally it arrived in 6 boxes that were no bigger, each could sit on my lap. We sold one box at UK Games Expo entirely, 120 copies. That was the most we'd ever sold at Expo. Yeah. And we went to Essen with a carload of stuff in one little car's load of stuff rather than 2 cars worth of stuff, feeling that we didn't have anything to lose, that we were doing all right. 120 sold at Expo over the summer was setting up a really nice buzz for the autumn. You carry on now. My thing's fading.
Oh, and yeah, what it meant there was that we already had then at that point, we already knew that we had a good product at Essen that people were really keen on. And so we were super confident at that point. I would say actually that looking at the board game switch over for early on when we went Copper Rollerblade Legacy, those, and then Tyrosy of Kings, Confucius was the first one where we were taking the risk. We couldn't do it completely ourselves. We couldn't fund it completely ourselves. We went back to being able to fund things ourselves, and we could do that with card games, and we had the experience of doing that. So there's much less risk with something like Fzzzt. But yeah, I think that the real things about Fzzzt, we'd spend a lot of time developing Fzzzt, and we played it loads, and we took a lot of advice from other designers with Fzzzt. So I mean, we were very confident with that, and actually, to be fair, for UK Games Expo, that was the first time we'd actually made money. You know, we actually made a profit on a con, whereas previously we'd kind of vaguely maybe broken even if you discount some of the hotel costs and travel and things. We made a bit, but with Fzzzt we actually made money, so we were very confident about
it. Was the first in many ways, actually. The first time we made money at a con, the first time we sold out at a convention, because we sold out at Essen that year.
Yes,
it was the first game of ours that got picked up for reprinting by another company. That was Griffin Games. Yeah, they did it in their tin box series, and a Russian company as well. Lifestyle did a Russian version as well.
The Russian version was great. I mean, in fact, our dealings with the Russian company were really good. It was very straightforward. They said, "This is what we're going to do. We're going to." I can't remember how many copies. We're going to print this many copies. We'll send you copies. You want an advance on royalties? Here's the advance on the license fee. That whole thing, that all went through, and the money came through. It was fine. And they actually they published it in a bigger box than our relatively small card box, because what they decided to do in Fzzzt, you see who's on turn, as it were, by passing around the box, and the box has a spanner on the side, so because it's relevant for theme, they decided to put a real spanner in the box. So in the Russian copy, you get a real spanner. I always think of that. It must be kind of old World War II T-34 spanner stocks. You could probably get spanners really cheap in Russia.
It was a humorous thing for us. We had so much fun. The T-shirts we did with the puns, the robot names thing hidden on the cards, the hidden basic programs in the background. The posters we had, like who's the spanner in your group? And apparently the word Spanner in German means, is it like a dodgy, perverted character?
Yeah, I don't know.
Spanner. I mean, so a lot of the German audience were sort of giggling at this poster. It was enormous fun to do the artwork.
Peeping Tom, apparently. Charlie says to Peeping Tom.
A Spanner, Peeping Tom. And the great thing about it is go on, Alan, sorry.
And it's award-winning. Tony's game won the UK Games Expo Best Card Game.
Yeah, we were sponsoring the expo in that year, so that was great. That was a really good win.
So we're coming to the end. Does anyone here have any questions, any comments, anything they want to know?
I would say that we had an empty van at the end of that Essen with Fzzzt, and Martin Wallace came over, and Treefog had a supply of Last Train to Wensleydale and London and a few others, and they didn't have a van. Paul Martin had thought he got it all sorted and couldn't get them back home again, so we filled my van up with his games, took them back home, put them in my lockup, which would become my shed eventually. And then Martin came down about 2 weeks later and picked them up in a van of his own. And I remember sat in my kitchen with the legendary, at that point now, this is 2009 now, this is at Martin at its peak, this is ultimate Martin Wallace. Sat in the kitchen having coffee, and I was ever so chuffed. This famous person in my kitchen. It was lovely.
Yeah, I had a pint with him at Essen last year, and I was incredibly chuffed.
This Confucius Fzzzt period is the birth of the shed, really, isn't it, Tony?
Yeah.
Well, actually, it's a bit later than that. It's around about Paperclip Railways, 2011.
Oh, okay.
2011, when I discovered that BGG had a blog function.
Right.
Yeah, we'll come to that tomorrow, I guess.
Anyway, so tomorrow we will go over Snowdonia, we will go over Paperclip Railways, we will go over Guilds of London, and we will talk about the future, the change, the fundamental change that's happened in Surprise Stare and where it goes in the future. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Thank you to Tony and Alan again. And we shall see you tomorrow, which should have been the last day of Essen, where I would be feeling incredibly hungover. But unfortunately, I'm feeling quite fit. So I'll see you all tomorrow. Thank you very much.
Goodbye, everybody.
Alan's frozen.
So we're doing a naked gun. We're doing that bit.
Yeah, we're doing naked gun.
We're just. Alan's never going to switch this off, is he? I want to show you my secret design. And this might be, but this is my secret design for next year's SurprisedStareGames. We need
very nice.
a 3D world that we can walk through, and virtual stands that we can actually go into and interact with, and do all sorts of stuff. Because I think I've missed the walking around the most. That's been the thing that I've just. Because I've no idea what to look for, so nothing catches my eye. Whereas if you're in the halls, you're walking down and go, "Oh, look, there's a game with a train on the box.
Right.
What on earth's that about?" And then you go and have a look for it. I can't do any of that. I've no idea what's being released.
No, I've no idea. I know Hallertau, and that's it. It's the only game I know.
I'm pretty sure most people aren't releasing anything specific,
right?
Because you would want to release it in a big fanfare and actually see it go off the stand, and you can't do that. Can't do that.
Does anyone else have anything to say? Now Alan's gone and we're stuck. Oh, this is the Hotel California of streams now.
It is.
We'll just be here until the end of time.
Yeah, I think. I mean, Alan was really good in that bit.
Hi, sorry, we lost the.
And then, of course, I was just telling about that time on the ferry going from Dover to Dunkirk.
Are we still live? I think we are.
Yeah. When it fell into the sea and Charlie had to dive in and fetch it. But
yeah.
I tell you what, you need to tie it harder to your leg next time.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
You are still live.
I'm going to have to try to end.
Charlie telling us that we're still. We know.
Yeah. I think.
I won't start talking about QAnon until we've.
No, they don't. No, I'll try to end the broadcast again.
Bless you.
Okay. Thanks, guys. Again.
Thank you.